Hey, it's Blur. Alchimiae Magicae is the newest entry in the Magicae series of mods. It aims to shake up alchemy and bring the joy of discovery to brewing. In this video, I'll be going over the basics of the mod, covering a few tips for making potions, and looking at some of the effects and features the mod adds. This mod is still a bit early on in its life, so some things are prone to change, but this should give you a good idea on where to get started. First, let's go over the basics. Brewing in Alchimiae Magicae is pretty simple, and is composed of two main steps: making mash and turning that mash into potions. Making mash is pretty straightforward, and requires just a couple of things: a mortar and pestle or grinder, and 2 or more ingredients. The ingredients used affect the duration and strength of effects, and the mortar and pestle used has an effect on the duration of the effects in the mash. Just craft them up and you'll get a mash that we can use in the next step. Once you have your mash, there are a couple of main ways to turn it into a potion. The first and easiest way is to just stuff it in a bottle by crafting it directly with a water bottle. This will give you a potion with the full duration listed on the mash, but only allow you to get 1 potion per mash. The second, slightly more efficient method is to brew the mash in a brewing stand. This works like any other potion crafting, allowing you to make up to 3 potions per mash, where each produced potion has slightly less duration than that listed on the mash. One thing to note is once you've crafted a potion with an ingredient, you can see the effects produced when holding shift and hovering over the ingredient. This makes it easier to craft future potions using the same ingredient. Next, let's go over some of the tools of the trade. Alchimiae primarily requires the use of one tool, the mortar and pestle, or, for later tiers, the grinder. These tools are used to turn ingredients into mash, which can be further processed into potions. There are a few different tiers of grinder, which progressively get more efficient as you go. The flint mortar and pestle is the earliest you can get, and produces mash with 30% of their potential duration. Next up are iron mortars and pestle, which produce mash with half their potential, and gold, which has low durability but gives 80% of their potential duration. Finally are the grinders. Diamond grinders produce mash at only 70% efficiency, but netherite produces mash which utilizes its full potential duration. At the moment, there is also one machine in Alchimiae Magicae, the boiler. This machine allows you to process mash into a mash concentrate which receives a severe penalty to its duration, but has more potent effects. This only works on non-instant effects, and mash processed this way cannot be processed any further. All that said though, Alchimiae Magicae is still quite early in its life, so there's still more tools and machines to come. Stick around to find out what's next. If you're playing with Alchimiae though, there's one thing you need to do: figure out what effects ingredients have. Since basically everything in the mod requires making mash to make potions, it's pretty important. Well, the most basic and obvious tip is to just experiment. Since at the time of writing, you can see the effects in the resulting mash before actually crafting anything, it's a good idea to place a bunch of things in the crafting table together and try to identify any effects you want, then narrow down what you're using to find the specific ingredients with those effects. That being said, there are a few ways to potentially save a bit of time. Identifying effects ingredients will always have, and identifying ingredient classes. First up are ingredient classes. These are groups of ingredients which all include at least one effect in common. There are a few of these in the base mod, such as mushrooms and flowers. Ingredient effects may have a guaranteed effect as well, though none currently do at the time of writing. I'll be going over all the default ingredient classes at the end of the video for anybody interested, as well as spoiling a few other secrets about the mod. In addition to ingredient classes, many ingredients will also have a guaranteed effect, which is either related to the mod they come from or the potions they can be used to craft in vanilla. You can figure many of these out by looking at vanilla potion recipes, but again, I'll be spoiling these all at the end of the video. This mod also adds a few other things worth noting, such as compatibility with other mods, potion effects, and more. First, let's go over new potion effects. To flesh out the pool of effects available when using just the base mod, Alchimiae Magicae adds a few potion effects, with more likely to come. The first of these are Feast and Famine. These are just instant effects that fill or drain your hunger bar, respectively. Next are Immune and Afflicted. These effects are interesting, in that they will have an effect on other effects you have rather than doing anything themselves. When you have Immune, negative potion effects you have will wear off faster, increasingly so with each level. Afflicted is just like Immune, but works on positive potion effects instead. Stride is a useful effect for travelers, as a speed and step height boost which stacks with speed and other similar effects. Pretty straightforward. Next are Lilliputian and Elision. Lilliputian makes you smaller, with a few incidental side effects, like letting you hold your breath slightly longer. Elision, meanwhile, makes you a much bigger target, but also allows you to step over large gaps and traverse the landscape faster. This makes it another great effect for traveling. More potion effects will likely be added in the future, but for now, let's get to what mods work well with Alchimiae. It has compatibility with Dusk Autumn and Twigs, which makes many of the natural blocks the mods add work as potion ingredients. Additionally, this mod has compatibility with Burger, which makes some of its ingredients also work as potion ingredient. If you're looking for even more compatibility though, check out the mod Sauced, which lets you put potions on your burgers too. If you have Farmer's Delight installed, not only will numerous foods added by the mod be usable as ingredients, but some high tier ingredients will also have potion effects from the mod. With Astral Arsenal installed, some effects from that mod will be added to the effect pool too, allowing you to increase people's susceptibility to damage and cap their health with potions. Lastly, and maybe the most obviously, Alchimiae has compatibility with Scripter Magicae. When both are installed, you get access to the exclusive potion effect Silver Tongue, which lets you cast spells faster than usual. And some potion effects added by Scripter are mixed into the effect pool too. And last, before we go on to spoilers, let's go over some potentially helpful commands. The command you're most likely to use this early in Alchimiae's lifetime is the Alchimiae Reset command. This regenerates all ingredients and their associated effects, which is useful if you've updated Alchimiae to add new effects, or have changed your data pack and want your changes to be reflected. Bear in mind that previous potion combos will likely not work after running this, so be careful. Next up, and also useful for debugging, is Alchimiae Learn Effects. This command, pretty straightforwardly, teaches you every potion effect for every ingredient. Simply run this, then you can hover over any ingredient and hold shift to learn every effect it has. If you've used Learn Effects for debugging, it may be useful to know the next command, Alchimiae Forget. This makes the user forget every ingredient they've learned, and is useful if you, for example, just use Learn Effects to check that the data pack applied properly, or such. Lastly, and least likely to be useful, is Alchimiae Dump Effects. This command just outputs a debug string including every effect into chat, and isn't likely to be particularly useful to the layperson, though it can sometimes help with data pack development. And that's it. Every ingredient, effect, and ingredient class can be customized via data pack, and more customization is planned, so stay tuned. This mod is also open source and has been released into the public domain via Creative Commons Zero, so feel free to peruse the source and do whatever you want with it. Alright, now let's get to the spoilers. In Alchimiae, there are a handful of default ingredient classes, all of which will share at least one effect amongst them. Big and small drip leaf and pitcher plants are in a group. Sweet and glowberries are grouped. All the living coral and coral fans are in a group. Big and small drip leaf are in another group and can share a second effect. Eggs, turtle and sniffer eggs, and frog spawns all share an effect. Raw salmon and cod and tropical fish all share an effect. Flowers all share one group and are further split into two groups which each share an additional effect. The first of these subgroups contains dandelions, azure bluets, lilacs, peonies, and pink tulips, while the second of these contains poppies, alliums, blue orchids, cornflowers, lilies of the valley, orange tulips, oxeye daisies, red tulips, rose bushes, sunflowers, white tulips, and wither roses. Most edible food and food ingredients share a class, including raw rabbit, apples, beef, beetroots, carrots, raw chicken, chorus fruits, raw cod, dried kelp, eggs, enchanted and golden apples, glistering melon slices, golden carrots, melon slices, mutton, potatoes and poisonous potatoes, pork chops, pufferfish, raw salmon, sugar, sweet berries, tropical fish, and wheat. Echo shards, emeralds, and lapis lazuli all share an effect, and golden apples and enchanted golden apples will share an additional effect. Kelp, dried kelp, seagrass, and sea pickles all share an effect, and most raw meat, including raw beef, chicken, mutton, pork, and rabbit, share an additional effect. Mushrooms, including red and brown mushrooms and warped and crimson fungus, all share an effect. Many overworld plants share an effect, including ferns, large ferns, bamboo, cactus, and sugarcanes. And lastly, numerous nether plants share an effect, including nether sprouts, crimson and warped roots, and twisting and weeping vines. Now let's move on to guaranteed effects. There's quite a few of these, but they all more or less track with the vanilla potions, so this shouldn't be too hard to keep track of. Blaze powder and blaze rods grant strength. Wind charges and breeze rods have wind charged. Cobwebs grant weaving. Golden apples, enchanted golden apples, and gas tears all contain regeneration. Glistering melons always give instant health. Glow lichen always gives glowing. Golden carrots have night vision. Magma cream grants fire resistance. Phantom membranes will give you slow falling. Poisonous potatoes give you guessed it, poison. Pufferfish have both poison and water breathing. Rotten flesh afflicts you with hunger. Shulker shells can give a potion levitation. Slime blocks add oozing to a mash. Spider's eyes will mix in instant damage. Sugar and sugarcane always have speed. And lastly, wither roses have the wither effect. Alright, now let's talk about the future for a second. This mod is nowhere near done, and in the future I'm looking to add plenty of ways to mix up the potion making experience. So I'd appreciate you sticking around with me to see where it goes. If you have any ideas or suggestions, feel free to join my Discord at dc.blur.lol or using the link in the description. And if you want to see other videos about modding, feel free to drop a subscribe. Anyways, I'll catch you next time. Until then, take it easy.